In the previous episode, I shared with you my story. Because of my personal fight with fibroids, I went on a decade-long search for answers. During that time, I was fortunate enough to have wonderful conversations with women from all walks of life who also endured and continue to endure this physical trauma. And so, on today's episode, it's all about the women and their fibroid stories. So tell me your fibroid story.
I will tell you my fibroid story, my fibroid tales.
My fibroid story.
My fibroid story is...
My fibroid story.
Okay, my fibroid story is...
My fibroid story
My
is...
fibroid.
My fibroid story.
My fibroid story.
My fibroid story is...
This is The F Word, a podcast about the underinvestigated and often misunderstood world of fibroids.
Yeah, so we are on 125th Street talking to women on the street about fibroid tumors. Do you know anything about fibroid tumors?
No, I really don't know anything about fibroid tumors except that when Condoleezza Rice was in office, that she had the fibroid tumors.
Can you tell me what you know about fibroid tumors? Do you have them? Do you know anyone with them? Or do you know any treatment options for them?
Well, I don't personally have them, but I know there's a lot of women, especially women of color, that are afflicted with fibroid tumors. And I know that it has to do with, well, it's not just a physical manifestation of sickness, it's psychological and emotional as well.
Years ago, on a sunny day in New York, Roderick, my co-producer, and I go out to 125th Street armed with a mic and a camera and ask random women about fibroids.
Talking on fibroid tumors, do you know anything about fibroids?
Personally, yes. I suffered with a lot of pain, and I went to the doctor and had like amnios, a type surgery where they test you, and they said they thought it was fibroids. They tried to give me antibodies to shrink it. Years later, I still had this discomfort after my menstrual. It was like a scar on your wall. And then they deemed me as having endometriosis. They never told me exactly what caused it, but my mom and my sister, we all had this experience with fibroid tissues. And it's like a tumor. It's like a scarring on your uterus wall.
Do you have fibroids?
Yes.
Have you done any type of treatment for them?
Not yet.
Do you plan on doing any type of treatment?
I want to, but I was told by a gynecologist that if they're not bothering you, then just leave them alone.
Do you know anything about fibroid tumors?
I know a little bit.
What do you know?
Well, that I had some. They interfered with pregnancies, and I had 7 miscarriages.
It was truly amazing to hear how many women suffered from fibroids and how many of them just kind of accepted them as fact.
What would you like to share?
Go get it checked out when you have it, because it can lead to a lot of things like anemia from excessive bleeding, and one of the ways to get through it is a hysterectomy, which I had to do about 8 years ago for that reason.
For those women who are out there and who know how beautiful they are, they must be vigilant about fibroids, because there are some beautiful black children to be born.
So random women in Harlem knew about fibroids, most of which had them themselves. This coincides with Johns Hopkins research, which shows that 77% of women suffer from fibroids at one point during their childbearing years. A little later that same year, I invited a group of women sufferers to a brunch at Chez Lucienne in Harlem to get more stories, to get even more personal. Yeah, there are a few women who declined to be interviewed because they said it was private, but very small percentage. Most women are dying to tell their story. Where can I tell my story?
You know, I had a weird theory that our bodies generally overcompensate for something that we're undergoing. Mm-hmm. So at some point, the overgrowth of tumors in the uterus overcompensated for something that was lacking.
The first one, I was 27. The second one, I was 29. Then I had a long stretch till 36. Then at, I believe I was 41 when I had my hysterectomy. Yeah, I just
just got tired?
My mother had them. Again, my cousin had them. She had certain had myomectomy. They came right back. You know, I had one and they came right back. You know, but he's also the first doctor I think that really the first OBGYN that actually would like talk to me and explain stuff versus others who, you know, I think that's why I kind of stayed with him, because he's the first one that would actually have conversations with you about what was going on. And
So they treated me.
You had fibroids
in your 20s? I had fibroids in my 20s.
Wow.
Exactly. In my 20s.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what it was. And I think there's something on here, there's a book like The Misdiagnosis. Seemed like all of us had more fibroids than we can count on two hands. Most of us had some kind of procedure done. And most of us had our fibroids come back multiple times.
Nothing that I could eat. So if it was food, my fibroids would have ran away. They would have been, what the heck are you doing now? We're going. And they didn't go away. So then that took out the food equation for me.
And you wonder about the point of your health care and this kind of, you know, verbal situation, like they telling us that, oh, you black women are the ones at high risk. You know, so, you know, it's the whole politics behind the truth. You know, are you getting the optimal amount of help, you know, care to go with your situation?
wow. By the time I had to have a hysterectomy, I mean, I had blockage. I had to concentrate to urinate.
Wow. Well, you know what's funny, being on subway trains, I think people are hesitant to offer a seat to someone pregnant because of fibroids, and now that they know about fibroids, they're thinking, she may not be pregnant.
Right. Is she really pregnant?
And I might get cursed out.
And even though we were exchanging laughs with our war stories, we knew that we were losing the fight. For the rest of this episode, we're going to focus on two women, Rhonda and Robyn, each with their own unique story. Both of these women exemplify the courage to fight the good fight.
My fibroid story is, I think a doctor told me that I may have had fibroids, let me do the math here, late 90s. But I was told very much like, oh, you might have them, no sonogram now, just by an exam. You may have them, but so many black women have them and it's really no big deal. And I was still late 20s and I did want to have children, but they just didn't think that it was going to be an issue.
I met Rhonda on the soap opera Another World. I was playing an assistant DA and she was playing a cop. When we met, she remarked that I looked like her mother, Diana Ross. We became fast friends. A few years later, I learned that, like me, Rhonda also suffered from fibroids. And so, when I started doing the documentary, I asked Rhonda if she would agree to sit down for an interview. This interview was conducted in 2007.
So then I moved to Los Angeles and I was having difficulty getting pregnant. So I went to an acupuncturist hoping that would help me get pregnant. And it was the Chinese acupuncturist who looked at my abdomen, which I didn't think was particularly extended. But he said, you have fibroids, you need to go get a sonogram. I went, got the sonogram, and it was diagnosed that I did have fibroids. I was told at that time that they were medium-sized. I went back to the same doctor, same lab guy, maybe 3 months later, and he said, "Oh, you have got huge fibroids." And it really hit me, because the way that they speak to you about your condition, one day it's nothing, the next day it's huge, one day you're fine, the next day it's hysterectomy. I did not want to have of course, a hysterectomy. I didn't even want to have a myomectomy at that time. This is now 99, 2000. But because I wanted a child so badly, I was terrified of going in and having someone give me a hysterectomy, or going in and somehow damaging my uterus. Instead, I tried to do some things with diet, and that at the time it didn't work for me. And finally, after still years of infertility,
and trying to get pregnant unsuccessfully. In 2003, I did have a myomectomy.
At this point, if you're finding yourself a bit lost in the medical language, do not worry. We will go into all of those details in the next episode. For now, let's go back to listen to Rhonda's story.
I'm lucky that I had the information and I also had the funds to be able to do this. I went to a fertility specialist. I know OBGYNs can do myomectomies, but I went to a fertility specialist and I dangled the carrot of in vitro and said, that's where you're gonna make your real money when you give me in vitro. So you make sure to preserve my uterus. I had about four fibroids, one of which he said was grapefruit size from the sonogram, but was considerably bigger, maybe double that size by the time he got in there. He did a very good job. He left one small one in because it was so close to the fallopian tube that he didn't want the scar tissue to block my tube, knowing that I wanted to get pregnant. And within a year, maybe a year and a half, I had another sonogram and they were back. They were all back. So it was about 2005 that I realized the fibroids had come back. And then at the end of 2005, I decided that I definitely wanted to get pregnant. I wasn't ready to have a second myomectomy, I wasn't willing. But I definitely wanted to get pregnant. I hadn't gotten pregnant on my own, so I did do in vitro. But we miscarried at 5 weeks. Shortly thereafter, I got pregnant again, and it was ectopic. But shortly thereafter, in August of 2006, I got pregnant naturally, during which my OBGYN said, you know, you do have these fibroids. And she said, during the early months of your pregnancy, your hormone levels go up, especially estrogen. That estrogen makes your fibroids grow. As they grow, they can outgrow their blood supply because they have just this one vein, for lack of a better word, feeding them blood. If they do outgrow their blood supply, they can begin to die. This dying is called degeneration, and it's a violent death. The fibroid sort of fights back. In the fighting back, first of all, it's very painful, and I was told it would be excruciatingly painful. And secondly, it releases a hormone that tells your body to go into labor, preterm labor. And once I was in excruciating pain, I would call the doctor and be given the right medications to protect my pregnancy. So I was doing a play, and I started to have cramping. My husband noticed I was always holding the bottom of my stomach as if I was holding it in or up. And the cramping I figured was due to fibroids, but it was not excruciating pain. So I said, yeah, we deal with pain. It was a little cramping. So I continued with my rehearsals. After maybe 24 hours, I noticed overnight that the pain had not ceased. So I still went to rehearsal, of course, but I called the doctor. And their reaction, the nurse, the doctor, everyone's reaction was, can you go home? So I went home and they said, this is what we think is happening. We think that your fibroids are degenerating, at least one of them. And that degeneration is causing you pain, and that degeneration could lead to preterm labor, so we need to watch you. I did go in to the doctor the next day. She did a sonogram. I was 4.5 months pregnant. So my baby was in the sonogram just doing his dance and all that stuff. And she said to me that my cervix was closed and tight and long or short or whatever it's supposed to be, and everything was fine. And the pills she had given me had made the cramping subside. So I felt fine. I think it was the next day or maybe 2 days later, I started to spot. And by the time I got into the hospital, I was 2.5 centimeters dilated, and we couldn't save the baby. And it was 100% due to these fibroids. So we lost the child. That was a year ago, just shy of a year ago. And that's really, for me, where the real journey of my fibroid story began.
We will continue to hear from Rhonda throughout the next episodes. Now moving on to Robyn. Robyn I met through my sister Ghana, who also had fibroids. Ghana told Robyn about my project. Coincidentally, she had planned to do a project on fibroids herself. But because of her busy schedule as vice president of the network, she agreed to be interviewed and to support behind the scenes as well.
My fibroid story is, I don't know what to start with. Like, what do most people start with? Just give me a cue.
When they first found out.
Okay. My fibroid story is that they have become the definition of my existence. The first time that I was diagnosed with fibroids, I was young. It wasn't really an issue for me and they weren't causing that much of a problem. Then later on, when the bleeding started getting heavier and I started having major clots, I mean like clots that were the size of like an apple or orange coming out of me, I had to plan my life around my menstrual cycle. I mean, fibroids just cause a daily issue for you in your life. When your cycle's on, you're conscious of the fact that you could have an accident. And I've had accidents, you know, like, and not because I didn't go to the bathroom enough or I wasn't prepared enough. It's just heavy and you have no control over that. The first surgery I decided to have was because I was working in Midtown and I used to work very late hours and I was coming out of the building and the fibroids were pushing on my anus. I remember just stopping mid-motion and the guards asking me if I was okay, and I was like, I'm fine, but I wasn't. And I made it to the bus, and my husband literally, who was my boyfriend then, had to literally carry me, meet me at the bus stop and carry me off the bus to get in the house. And then I was like, I have to have the surgery, because it was just making me immobile. My first myomectomy was in 2002. I was in my early 30s. My first doctor who did my myomectomy wasn't even as skilled as my second one, but he was the best I could afford at the time. I was freelancing and I didn't have health insurance, and he accepted all health insurances. I had a lot of fibroids. The first surgery yielded 4 fibroids, and I believe they were like grapefruit sizes. However, after I had my first surgery, the doctor did like an exam like 6 months later, and I still had fibroids. And then I got married, and then I was like, okay, I'm gonna have kids now. 2004, I got pregnant at the end of the year, and in 2005, at the very beginning of the year, I miscarried because one of those little fibroids that the initial doctor hadn't taken out had grown with the baby. And then I subsequently had 2 more miscarriages because of the fibroid. I tried everything with the fibroids. I did acupuncture. I don't quite think that was helping. And I was like, you know what, I just need to have a myomectomy again. I mean, there's sadness that comes with that because I actually want to have a natural childbirth, and I can't probably because my womb, the way that it's been cut, is not going to sustain, you know, giving birth, pushing the baby through it. When I had my second, I was in my later 30s. In 2007, the doctor who did my second myomectomy is the doctor that I wanted, and my initial research had come up, Dr. West. I was older, I was wiser, and I was a little bit wealthier, so I could afford a better doctor. The ones with Dr. West range from a soybean to a large orange. And I believe, I forgot the exact number, but I believe there was like over 20, almost 30. Dr. West took them all out. My second stay in the hospital, like within, I guess, 2 hours after my surgery, I was up and about. I think like that 3rd or 4th day that I was home, I was moving around to the chagrin of my husband and my mother and all those who were like, stay in bed. I think the difference between my 2 surgeries was that I had staples and tape the first time, and the second time I was glued. It was amazing because I actually was able to be more mobile initially. I mean, within days of the surgery, I was more mobile, and my healing process was just neater. I had a surgery about 6 months ago, and I still haven't been able to conceive. And I'm trying not to be frantic about that. But I definitely know because of fibroids, my womb is not intact. And I live with that every day. I live with the fact that what could I have done differently?
While Robyn and Rhonda have experienced fibroids in different ways, both have advocated for their own care and fought tooth and nail to live their lives on their own terms. You'll hear their stories unfurl over the rest of our episodes as they continue to contend with navigating medical decisions, child-rearing choices, and political action. In the next episode, we're jumping into the medical arm of this issue. Rhonda and Robyn both opted for surgical procedures. But what are other treatments that are available for fibroids? And do they actually work? We'll chat with naturopathic doctors and herbal medicine people and visit a womb wellness conference in Atlanta that's helping women fight this fight using various non-traditional healing modalities. That's next time. Thanks so much for joining us. The F Word is hosted by me, PaSean Wilson-Ashley, produced by Roderick Giles, Theo Perry, Rhonda Ross, Ghana Wilson, Amelia Winfrey, Robyn Greene Arrington, and me. Editing and sound design by Avital Ayler.